Welcome to Plot Armor Online, where authors log in, level up, and sling spells of prose across the realms of fantasy and sci-fi. Dive deep into world building, battle-broken character arcs, and explore magic systems that defy the laws of reality. And maybe logic, too. Each week, a new companion is summoned to raid the latest releases and roast tired tropes with fiery hot takes. Whether you're crafting the first chapter or slaughtering darlings in your 10th rewrite, grab your quill, equip your shield, and roll for initiative. This is Plot Armor Online, hosted by Kevin and Matthew, two scribes on a quest through the multiverse of authorship.
Hello, and welcome to Plot Armor Online. This is episode 8. My name is Kevin. We have Matthew here, and our guest author for this week, right below me, is Miss Haley. How are you doing today,
Hello.
Haley?
I'm doing pretty good. Having a good day. Slept in, got some chores done. No writing done, but that's okay.
Nice.
Nice. Sleeping in's always good.
Saturday.
I love a good nap. My morning started. I had to wake up a little earlier. Drove out to meet a pop-up bookstore outside of one of my a local coffee shop, and I had talked to the owner yesterday, and she's like, "Sure, yeah, I'll put your book on my shelf." I was like, "Sweet, I'll be there." So
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And they have like this little Japanese utility truck, you know, with the like the little bitty things, like half the size of a normal vehicle, with bookshelves built on the backside, like where the bed is at, and then the inside the bookshelves, they have it enclosed, and that's where they have all the storage and boxes for all the books and stuff going. So that was kind of cool.
That's so cool.
Gave them like 5 copies of my book, and they were like, "How much do we owe you?" I was like, "Nah, it's advertisement, and you know, y'all are trying to make money. I'm trying to make, you know, get my name out there, so it's all good." But,
Yeah, part of the battle is getting the name out, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's probably the biggest part of the battle after the book stuff.
Yeah.
you spend all that money getting your book, you know, edited and all your license fees and cover art and all that other stuff, and then now you've got to market it. Hello.
I told you which part was the worst part, you know, and for me, it's definitely marketing. But it's only because it's a learning curve, you know. Once I feel like I can figure out a bit of it, it won't be so bad.
Right. So, Haley, if I remember right, when I sent you the invite for the podcast, you were looking for interviews. You had never done an interview before, so this is like your first one.
Well, I had an interview before with a friend of mine. He kind of just did them for fun, and we had a lot of fun. We got off topic pretty fast because we had been talking for so long on the side that it just kind of spiraled. I did another one with another author. These were all authors on Facebook. That's where I was for the most part, growing, and then it kind of stopped. And so now I, you know, switched over to X or Twitter, whatever people still call it. And so it's kind of my first time doing this kind of platform.
So before today, technically, we were streaming to Twitch, YouTube, and X all at the same time. So you were getting seen by,
Oh,
you know, if you would have been getting seen by like everybody or potentially everybody, but we hardly had any viewers anyway. So hey, it is what it is. Most of our viewership was on X, and then we'd get some after watches on YouTube. I don't think there's been
mhm.
that many listens or watches on Spotify, but hey, it is what it is. I'm still going to put it up there, so in case anybody wants to just listen to it, you know, and you've got a Spotify account, hey, tune into Plot Armor Online. But anyway, so I mean that's cool. So we're kind of getting you back into the stream. How long ago was that you said you were doing your other interviews?
Oh my gosh. It's
Book
been a
one
hot
time
minute.
frame
It's been
before
a
book
hot
one
minute.
time frame?
Oh gosh, no. I did it kind of backwards, which is on me. So my first book came out 5 years ago, or is it 6? Oh my gosh. Uh-oh. 5 years ago, we'll just say. And I didn't actually start promoting it until 2 years ago. And by then, book 2 had already come out. It was more of a confidence thing. I was just kind of doing it for fun. And then as I continued writing, because it's a 6-book series, it belatedly dawned on me. I'm like, what's the point of writing all of these if I'm not promoting myself, not telling people? So I had a little bit of a confidence boost. It kind of happens when you get to your 30s, I guess. And so that's why I'm kind of late to the game, because it's, you know, that it is what it is, but it's never too late to start, I think, regardless of what people say. So kind of the whole interview thing was like a thing that I did on Facebook for like, we're saying like a 3-month span, minus the
Okay.
fact that I've been on there for 2 years now.
Yeah, I'm looking at your book one, and it's got a 2023 release date. Used on Amazon.
Oh yeah, I did a second edition because first one needed a bit of help. Let's just say it was, you know, I wrote it when I was 18. I worked on it for 8 years, and I thought, cool, I'm done. And then I realized I was not. And so, you know, I had to clean it up, get it reading worthy.
You get the feedback.
You know,
Everybody's
except, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, luckily fixed. Yeah, well, no, luckily I only had one trusted beta, and when she was helping me with book 2, she told me the error of my ways. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, before I promote this, I obviously need to go back and fix this because this is garbage and no one should be reading this. So
words out of my own mouth.
Made it all pretty. I mean, I think everyone thinks their work is garbage at one point or another. Unfortunately, I thought it after. So I did a second edition. And the first one will never be seen. Ever be seen. Because it's just the typical issues, you know, newbies make. It is what it is.
Ever be seen or ever be seen again, because you put it out once before.
I did, and I took it down. And if it's out there, I'm so sorry. If anyone's read it, I am very sorry. But you know, it's
a really good sign.
It is what it is.
Hey, at least you took
really
the
good
time
when
to
you can go back and read your old work and notice that
yeah,
you've improved as a writer. It can fix it. So.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, right now I'm working on book 4, and the editing process is so much smoother now than it was working on 1, 2, even 3. You know, it's every time you write a book, you're, you know, practicing. That's basically how it is. And when I'm reading, I'm also researching. And so it's constant learning. So every book should be getting better. And so that's why I went back and fixed 1. It's not the best it can be because I'm a perfectionist, so it never will be. But, you know, it is 100 times better. Like, I will now gladly say, yes, it's readable. The first one was not. The second edition absolutely is.
Sounds about like my my first I did my rough draft. I sent it out to a whole bunch of friends and family and people that I thought was going to be decent, beta readers to give me some back feed, people I trusted. And here I am, almost 7 months later, still have yet to receive any feedback from any of them
Oh,
besides my wife. And then I kind of took that version and tossed it in the garbage. And unfortunately, there's about 20 copies or so out there of that version, and it's very much the rough draft. And I've already surpassed the the word count for that version of the entire book on just Act 1. So yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah, we definitely need the honesty. Luckily, my beta, as ruthless as she is, it was very honest, and I obviously need it because it's making repeat mistakes. If you don't know, if someone doesn't tell you, you're not going to learn. You can read all you want online, what to do, what not to do, but you really will have blinders on. You need outside eyes, otherwise you have no idea what mistakes you're making or what have you.
Right.
Everyone thinks they're a good writer until someone tells them otherwise. So, yeah, it's been my experience.
Right.
It's so
yeah.
it reminds.
Unfortunately, sometimes
It kind of reminds me of what they call the paradox of the expert. Novice doesn't know what they don't know, and the expert doesn't know that the novice doesn't understand.
that sounds
kind of. I mean, it kind of fits, but like you could have two people on opposite ends of the spectrum, and like the person starting out doesn't know everything out there, and they're not going to know until they're taught. And the person that's up at the top doesn't realize that the person down at the bottom doesn't understand what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, all right, so tell us a little bit about. I guess. Hold on. Let's back up a little bit. Get some artwork in here. Elementas series. We've got some artwork. All right. So tell us a little bit about the Elementas series. That's. I mean, you've got 3 books out now. We kind of talked about how book 1. As a few versions in, but you're working on book 4, and you just re-released book 1 with new artwork. So tell us a little bit about the series for those of us in audience out there that don't know about your books yet. What genre are they? Like a little bit of a synopsis.
Yeah, sure. So the Elementas series, it's a grimdark romantic fantasy. There are 6 books total. They've all been outlined for 14 years. So I know exactly where they're going, where they're headed. So it's largely overall theme is cruel fates and tragic love stories. The romance is closed door because I don't see the point in having spice. It's all about the turmoil. Most characters are morally gray, so which goes into the theme of grimdark. I don't really have heroes. I have mostly anti-heroes. They are 6 elemental races, so I don't have humans. I don't have none of that. It's purely elemental themed. There are griffins and dragons because who doesn't love dragons? I know some people are sick of them, but I am not. Not a good versus evil. That's just not grimdark, and it's not what I do. I like realism. I like everything's gray. Sometimes things don't work out. The guy doesn't always get the girl. The hero doesn't always win.
Okay. So is each of your books exploring one of the 6, or each book is exploring one of the 6 elemental races, or is it just different stories?
So they all feed off of each other. I mean, you could theoretically jump into 2 without reading 1 if you wanted to. It's kind of how they're written. However, you won't understand all the little nuances in all of them. But the worlds slowly get bigger as the books go on. So Yamay, the first in the series, it's very small world. It's very focused on Yamay. She doesn't travel far because she's kind of a captive. I shouldn't say kind of. She is a captive. But it's mostly focused on just 2 races in the first book, which is the Darkiri, which are darkness and lightning, and the Latari, which is light and ice. Those are the main focus of races. Not until book 2, War of the Gods, does it grow into 6 races. It gets vastly bigger.
Hold on. There we go. There's book 2.
So
okay.
Yeah, it gets much bigger world. On the back of every book, though, there is a symbolism for each of the book or the races. So the first book is going to have a dragon for the Darkiri. The second book's going to have a griffin. That's okay. That's totally okay with me because they're in the box I really moved. But the back of second book is a griffin for the Latari, and then third book, Keepers. The back is a dorsal fin surrounded by shark teeth because it's for the Watiri, which are the water. We're gonna find it. Maybe.
Oh, that's of course the audiobook's not gonna have the back cover.
Yeah, if you switch to hardcover, there you go.
Oh, so there's book 1, Dragon. Cool. Over to back. Got a griffin. There's the griffin for book 2. You said book 3 is what now?
Keepers. And that will be the dorsal fin with the shark teeth. And that's for the Watiri, which are the water elementals.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, continue. Sorry. Little sidetrack of book art.
No problem. That's basically the gist of the series as a whole. It's just, cruel fates, tragic love stories. I don't guarantee happy endings. I don't, there is hope because even though I write Grimdark, which is, it's meant to be realistic and gritty, it focuses on, the dark side of the world and a lot of morals are questioned, but there's always has to be a glimmer of hope, or otherwise it's going to be a very depressing book. And so, there are ups and downs. There are things you hold on to. There are things where you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Things are going to go sideways. I have a reader who doesn't trust anything happy because she knows it's not going to last. But that's the joy of Grimdark, which is a deep love of mine. Which is funny because when I originally wrote these books, I didn't even know Grimdark existed. I just wrote with this theme in mind, and I later found out that it's a whole subgenre, and I got very excited.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Grimdark wasn't like too popular until recently, wasn't it? Like I know it was made. The term Grimdark was made extremely popular with Warhammer. Because it's actually
Warhammer and then Glenn Cook.
Yeah, Warhammer actually uses the Grimdark as a setting, like the space out in the Grimdark, kind of.
Oh.
But anyway, yeah. So that's awesome. I'm sitting here staring at your. Sorry, I've got another monitor like over here on this side. That's why I'm looking that way. It always kind of makes me wonder why they classify dark fantasy under horror as a subgenre of horror when it's not. Not really.
It's not. Horror, it's the focus on the monster. Grimdark is not focused on the monster because, I mean, I guess technically everyone's a monster. So maybe it is, who knows? But they're really not the same. Like, dark fantasy is not Grimdark, horror is not Grimdark. However, you know, the good old-fashioned Amazon doesn't have Grimdark, so I get listed under dark fantasy horror, which it is what it is. I guess it kind of could be horror because the Darkiri, one of my races, they're very monstrous, I guess, in a way. They're, you know, they're vampiric almost without being actual vampires because I made up my races, but I did pull inspiration from a lot of things and kind of just created races with cultures and beliefs and all that other fun stuff.
Oh yeah, book one's got a 4.8 with 40 ratings on Amazon and a 4.4 on Goodreads with 30 ratings. Good standards. Good. Sorry, Matthew.
No, it's okay. I'm curious what, Haley, what made you want to write a series that doesn't follow like a single storyline? You have different characters and different books, right? And kind of.
So they do follow a storyline. Yeah, sure. So technically, the first story I wrote, like in my head, is 4, and I kind of continued on, you know, book 5 and 6, you know, the grand finale. And so I was like, okay, it's kind of a trilogy. But then I thought, you know, well, there's more to it. Like, what sets off book 4? And so book 3 came to mind. I'm like, well, what sets off book 3? And so book 1 is technically the last one I wrote in my head. So in a way, it's like a prequel.
Interesting.
But yeah, I can't explain it. That's as best as I can explain it, I guess I should say. And they do follow. I mean, the narrators do change because not everyone survives. There is some time jumps. But they do line up. However, I did write it where if you were feeling crazy, you could jump around, like not jump around, but skip a book if you really do. But that's how most series are written anyways, because you kind of cover whatever happened in the previous book. I do suggest reading them in order so you catch all the history that I put in and weave through. But, you know, readers do what readers do.
Yeah. All this extra artwork on your Amazon pages that you didn't even send me, Haley.
I'm sorry, you cut out.
I said you got all this artwork on your Amazon pages that you didn't even send me. Look at this. All this advertisement stuff going on. You sent me the side pictures.
Yeah, the A+. Yes. Yep, there's a whole lot of A+ content I working on. I'm just experimenting with what works, what doesn't, what's fetching.
Cool. When was it? 2023?
Yeah.
So you've had these. You said you wrote these like way back in the day. You used to. You had a. I saw a post earlier on minimize and dig through X. You posted earlier that you have tons of research, reading, and writer convos. I feel confident in your voice, world building, and characters. Others. So he said, "Oh, that's not the one I was looking for." I digress. So you said you got into you originally from what I remember, and pardon me if we've already covered this. You had like you kind of grew up with some hearing issues, so you kind of got into like the storytelling visualization so that you could. I mean, am I wrong on that, or am I in the right ballpark?
You're in the right ballpark. So I had hearing issues. I had my hearing corrected when I was 7. Did a lot of years of speech therapy afterwards. But when I was little, I couldn't hear the stories being told to me. You know, I just looked at the pictures and I just guessed the stories. So I kind of was making up stories since I could see pictures. And so I kind of just wrapped myself up in that. And, you know, once my hearing was corrected, I absolutely love storytelling. I love watching great stories on TV, reading great stories. You know, when I do game, it's RPGs. I love stories. So I kind of been working on the Elementas series kind of since I'm really young. Of course, as I got older, darker, I'd be very concerned. But it has been a very lifelong story in my head. And so when I was 18, I kind of just outlined all 6 books. Like I knew exactly where my vision was. I had spent so many years kind of thinking about it. And so it's just been a very, very long journey and constant learning, even with all this time.
What? So you like to write in Grimdark. Is there any other if you had to, or if you had the opportunity to a different or potentially different genre, what could you see yourself writing?
My second favorite genre to read is thrillers, but I don't know if I could pull off a thriller. I mean, people have, like, my reviewers have said that Yamay is thrilling, so I guess I have a bit of a thriller in me. I was thinking maybe if I had to, I could do horror because, you know, scary monsters and stuff seems fun. But I'm not sure. Maybe a thriller, just because kind of my second go-to when it's time to read. When I need a break from fantasy or a break from Grimdark, I go to thrillers, which isn't that much of a break because then I can't sleep because it gets me all flustered, you know, with what's going on.
But are kind of hard whenever you got like all this time and you don't got to worry about like keeping yourself on a schedule.
Yes. Did you start reading Grimdark before you started writing Grimdark, or did your stories kind of change over time as you got older and read more darker stuff before?
Yeah, so my stories, I guess, maybe it sounds sad, you know, they were happier when I originally came up with them. As life goes on, they got dark. And again, I didn't really find out Grimdark was like a whole subgenre. I knew, you know, there was morally gray out there. I knew there were darker themes out there. But then when I found out it's an actual thing, I was like, oh, I actually like fit in somewhere. Okay. And now I'm reading Grimdark, and some of it's just absolutely fantastic. I'm actually reading a Grimdark book right now. And I don't really know if I can say influenced me reading Grimdark to make my stories darker, because again, I already know where they're going. I already know what I want and envision. It's more of, you know, when I read, it's more of like understanding style. Like I already have my voice. I already know what I sound like on the page, but when it comes to really like packing that punch, maybe that's where like that influence really comes from.
All right, I'm always checking different things on the don't get worried if you see me looking around. I'm always checking stuff.
Yeah, the only thing that I really got questioning on is, you know, Grimdark and romance don't really go hand in hand. Like I've read Grimdark where there is romance like weaved through, but you know, it's not like pure romance like what you think of a romance novel. Not romantasy either. Like it's romantic fantasy. Surprisingly, people might not know, is different from romantasy or your basic. So, like, romantic fantasy is the romance is there, it's present, but it's not it doesn't drive the story typically. And the best part about romantic fantasy is that you're not required to have a happily ever after where romance and romantasy you kind of are, otherwise your readers would be really mad. So it's kind of perfect in a way, even though Grimdark romantic fantasy isn't really a thing. They do complement each other because you don't have to have a happy life, which who really believes in all of that all the time? Maybe that's just the cynic in me. I don't know.
Trying to look for the story.
I think it's great to mix genres like that. In fact, genres as a construct kind of bother me because I think originally, genres were created to serve the stories, to let people know, if you like this kind of book, here's some other books that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
And the modern industry has kind of flipped that on its head, and now people are expected to write for the genre rather than the genre kind of showing you where books fit. Your book is supposed to fit within a genre, and that really bothers me because I don't think that that's helpful. And I think all the really popular books, the ones that everyone's heard of, they create new genres, and then everyone tries to fit their books into those kind of similar molds. And so I think it's really helpful, and I think it's healthy for the industry to create books that don't fit nicely into a single genre. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, I guess I was advertently doing it already, but I agree, if like that's why some genres kind of like, I don't want to say I avoid entirely, but like again, like your typical romance, I actually have a really hard time reading them because I know the guy gets the girl and I know they live happily ever after at the end. It's not as fun for me where I like, the higher stakes, like will they survive? I don't know. So I'm definitely in the darker things. I mean, thrillers, kind of, like they're going to catch the guy, but I've seen thrillers where, the person doesn't always survive and things really go bump. And so those are the kind of stories I just naturally gravitate to. I'm stuck in the realism, even though I love fantasy. I realism in my fantasy.
Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you.
I was looking for the Warhammer
shows.
Yeah.
So it was making me think because like grimdark fantasy, the only or like a grimdark romance, the only thing that it made me think of was, and unfortunately it's all fanfic because there's no canon. There's no canon basis for it, but in Warhammer 40K, Guilliman and Yurvain, which was an Eldar princess, suppose there's a lot of fanfic out there that they fall in love and have a kid. And all fake.
People out there shipping them, huh?
Yeah, there's just no basis for it. But I mean, here you have in the Warhammer, you have Guilliman, which is one of the Astartes Primarchs, and a princess of the Eldar, completely different opposite factions. In all essence, Guilliman should be slaughtering them all. But there was something that
good old Romeo and Juliet.
Now
the original grimdark romantasy, right?
Now there is a pairing where they aren't killing each other, but they never actually in canon get romantic. They just apparently, like, she ends up saving their lives, and then they kind of in turn have this mutual survival instinct because now they're on like the opposite side of like reality or something. They took a wormhole gate to through the void. And anyway, I digress. That's a whole nother That is, it's a whole nother series, a whole nother story. Not even the same, not even the same genre. But all right. So let's see. About 30 minutes. So how long have you've been a part of the fellowship for about as I mean, you were kind of in the scene with X about the same time or a little bit before I showed up. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I made my profile when it was still Twitter, and when I first like, okay, I'm going to dive into this promotion, social media grind, if you will, and I was, on 4 different social medias, and the only one that really took was Facebook. So I kind of dropped the other 3 and just focused on it. And then when that well ran dry, I was like, all right, well, Instagram and TikTok. I deactivated my TikTok a long time ago. I can't make videos. It's just not my thing. I don't have the time or the space to really do it. And then Instagram is kind of also pretty video heavy. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm easier to just say a snarky comment there and make or ask questions. So I was like, all right, I'll focus on Twitter. And so yeah, once I got active there, and which was only January of this year is when I decided to like really focus on it. And so I guess fairly new to it, being active, not so much as new to it in general. But yeah, I definitely joined the fellowship, I think pretty early on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I joined it like a week or two after it started, and I wasn't one of the first. But I was still over there trying to swim through the community that is what is it, the writing community and all the writers lift bullshit that like goes
Mm-hmm.
on that end. And it's like it's so much. The thing is whenever you sign up for X and you're like you're digging through social media and you're trying to find other authors because you're like, I'm an author, blah blah blah, here's some of the people I like. Well, the first things you start seeing is that writers community, and then the writers lists and all that other stuff. Well, they don't, you got to be careful
Mm-hmm.
because all those posts you're seeing are all bots. I mean, more or less.
Yeah.
And they're all throwing up AI generated content, trying to promote themselves as New York bestsellers and this award winning author, that award winning author, when it's not even them. It's some dude in Nigeria or or India talking about I can help
Who
you
knows
promote
where?
your books.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's the big thing you learn joining social media. Bots. Oh my gosh, like on Facebook, I had to block entire countries just to get it to stop, which I didn't know you could do. You can block entire countries, and it was very nice once I did that. X apparently, I haven't found it, so it's just you have to pick and choose who you follow and what you join. And when I first joined 2 years ago, I didn't, you do the writer's list and all that stuff, and then you realize this doesn't get me anywhere. It's just they're just sharing everything, but it
hashtags
doesn't
really
actually
don't.
do anything.
The hashtags really don't do anything anymore anyway.
No, I stopped doing them.
Yeah.
I did them, I think, the first like month or this year, like when I was trying to take it more seriously, and then I was like, it doesn't work, and so I experimented. Because that's all this is, it's all experimental, and I found out, well, it doesn't make sense to just stop doing it because it's so much easier to just post instead of try to think hashtag goes with this post, and so it's just it's all fun.
I remember when hashtags took off and it was like everybody was using it across Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, and it was supposed to be a way that you could like, especially in like Reddit and some of the early social media like forums and stuff like that. Click on the hashtag, find other posts that have that hashtag, and see all the trending, stuff. It is what it is, but I don't even remember it being on. I don't think it was on MySpace, was it? I mean,
No, I can't remember hashtags being on MySpace. But man, you're taking me really far back saying MySpace.
Sorry, I'm showing my age here. I know you said you're in your 30s. I'm not going to ask specifically because we don't do that. But I'm about.
I mean,
about
I posted that I would turn 32 in May, so okay. I already announced it to the world.
Well then, I've got about 10 years on you.
Gotcha. Well, you don't look it.
I remember the top 8 and the top 4 and the top 16 and the wars that were created in high school and college.
Oh, I remember those. Yeah, you had to pick your top friends.
I remember
it being like I think 4 and 8. I don't remember it being any other ones.
Best friends, relationships, and families being destroyed because of that. Because of the topic.
And it was always annoying when they would change their relationship to complicated. It's like it's just pick one.
Not complicated. It's right there on your arm. I know that's so wrong, but it is. But yeah, the hashtags really don't mean anything anymore. Like they were there for a while. You could still click on them and find other related hashtag posts. But I mean, Writer's Lift doesn't do anything. You have self-promo this Tuesday, self-promo Wednesday, and it doesn't do anything. All you're doing is you're adding you're self-promoting yourself, adding a whole bunch of hashtags that nobody's going to click on. And, at that point, hell, you might as well just like post it on your own feed and, put your best stuff out there. Just leave the hashtags off. I mean, it doesn't do anything.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's just for engagement, that's engagement farming is really high. Like a lot of times, like I see people asking the same questions over and over and over. And I'm like, I get it. You're trying to just get engagement so people see your posts, but followers doesn't mean sales. Followers doesn't equal readers. So like what really gets you readers is, the word of mouth, ads, like, but you just saying something witty, like, do you like fruits or vegetables? That's not going to get you a reader. If it does, okay, I'm wrong. But like,
there's a
point of fact is like, it's not really going to win you
get
anything.
You an audience.
There's a meme I posted earlier on somebody else's post. It was, do you think that the air you breathe is really tree farts?
Yeah, I mean it is. if you want to think about it.
But I mean, so like to me, engagement's just engagement. I'm on social media. Yeah, I'm an author. I throw my promo up once a day, once every other day or so. Hey, buy my book. It's out. I have some witty, cool banter about my thing where Aldwin, my shopkeeper, is talking to you directly as the reader. But I don't, like most of the time I do that like once every other day, maybe once every 3 days. I think there for the promo thing, I was doing it once a day. But I'm not going to sit there and spam my feed with that. Most of the time, I'm tossing memes up. I'm engaging with other people, talking trash in comment sections.
Naturally. Yeah, there are definitely some authors out there who only like plug their book. And like, I get it. We're all doing the same thing. We all want to sell a book. We all want to get readers. We want to find our audience. But like, I at least try to post some things that are either like not educational necessarily. Like sometimes people don't even like, I've met some people who have no idea what Grimdark is. And I don't judge, because obviously I didn't either until I had a reader tell me like, this is Grimdark. And I was like, ooh, what's that? And so like, I try to post things that are writing related, author related. People can relate to such things because like it is also a community. I don't expect to get readers from saying like, hey, authors, where do we struggle? But like, I still want to build a community. I still like having author friends. talk shop. That's where you get to share information. I have another author who has taught me a lot just having conversations with her. I had a mentor who is a traditionally published author. And so, you know, she has information and she's helped me grow as an author just with her little tidbits and conversations. And so, like, that's kind of, I mean, I don't say my goal is to like help other authors be educated, but at the same time, like, newbie authors, again, don't know what they don't know. And so, like, if I say, you know, like my post that got way out of control, I don't know why it blew up, but me saying, hey, said's not heard, and everyone like lost their minds, luckily agreeing with it, because that's not a conversation I'm going to have with, I've had people argue me with like simple grammar rules, and I just say, okay, like, that's fine. If you want to believe that, that's cool. I'm just saying, and white in this world. Again, everything's gray. That's why I write gray stuff.
You know, it used to bother me on social media that I'd be all like, I misspelled that, or, oh, I didn't punctuate that. And then the grammar Nazis hit you. And it's so annoying. Half the time, you know, and if you see a really off the wall post from me that doesn't have any punctuation, no capitalization, no commas, you know, it might even be the wrong word, or I'm missing a word in there somewhere. Probably because I'm using speech to text. And speech to text on your phone is extremely wrong. And unless you're sitting there going, hi, comma, I really enjoyed this book, period. Please, you know, let me, whatever, you know, exclamation point. And that's what you're actually telling your phone. It's not going to do any of it.
Yeah, my biggest that I posted was, I said, today was one heck of a Monday. It was a Tuesday. And I didn't know until someone commented saying it was Tuesday. And I was like, well, that's to show you how heck of a day it was. I thought it was Monday. So
that's how bad of a Monday it is.
I
Your Monday was so bad, it ran 2 days long.
It ruined Tuesday.
I mean, I always... right? I mean, like, I own my book. So again, like, that's why I freely admit, oh yeah, I have a second edition to my book, because I can admit that first edition was, like, if you have it, like, I know this is blasphemy, but you can, if you're cold and you need firewood, I won't be offended. Like, that thing is rough. But, like, again, I can admit it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with admitting mistakes. And I know it's not perfect, even if I am a perfectionist. Like, it's all right. We make mistakes. It's how you learn. You can't learn unless you make a mistake.
Out of those, like, 20 copies I told you that I had out for my first rough draft, they're about 416 pages long as a rough draft.
Oh.
But very large font, double spacing, etc. It out. I wanted people to be able to take notes in it. That's why I made it so, you know, made those drafts that I have two of them in this house, and I'm probably going to at some point, you know, when the real one gets published, it's going to be used as kindling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two printed versions.
No matter how hard
of the first version.
Good. I think we had a little bit of hiccup.
Sorry, I was just saying, no matter how hard you try, you can't get a perfect book. I rewrote Bloom like 4 times and had almost 3 dozen beta readers on it. And then I sent out the arcs, and I had like half dozen people read the arc. And then I published it, and then I started reading it, and I found so much. I was like, ah. Oh,
yeah,
look,
it's always when you hit publish.
Oh, look, I missed a word there. Oh, man, it's just...
yeah, even to this day, like, I shouldn't do it. I know, but I do it anyways because I'm a monster. But, like, I schedule editing breaks because I learned early on that you can burn out really fast on a book. So I'm taking book 4, you know, with scheduled breaks. I take 2 to 4 weeks off working on book 4. However, that doesn't mean I always take off like writing or editing. I'll like mess with the outlines for book 5 and 6, or sometimes I go back and read Yamay and I'm like, that sentence is stupid, and like I'll think about changing it. So it really never ends. If you think it's over, it's never over. Now, if you're a strong enough person to say, nope, I'm done, I'm not going back to it, that's awesome. I can't do that. I always look back and go, oof, that sentence was rough, or what kind of paragraph was that? But again, that's why every book gets better and better, because you're constantly learning, you're constantly going. And even when you hit publish, you're going to find something every time.
Yeah. One of the, I think there was like 2 chapters in mine that was really quick. Well, I mean, not the rough draft, but I had kind of worked it in, and I actually took those 2 chapters, one scene in one chapter, and an entire chapter that was like right after it. What I did was I actually took that one scene, made it its own chapter altogether, expanded on the whole thing, and just give it a little bit more vibrancy, a little bit more life in the early parts. The ending, it was an important scene. Like the ending part of it was so emotionally charged. It was such an emotional charged outburst that it almost made me want to cry every time I was sitting there reading through it and writing it, and it's that heartfelt teenage angst that was kind of going on. And then the next chapter, it was an introduction to a whole nother character. So it was like this introduction to a female MC that I had, and she's an important part of the entire book, but for some reason, at the time I had one chapter for her. That was showing who she was and was expediting. And I had a couple beta readers tell me that. I was like, hey, you really need to go back, and like this character is there's groundment there. You need to expand on this. You're cramming about 4 years into a single chapter of development here. So what I did is now it's 4 chapters. So I took the introduction and built more onto it. So added more in the beginning, a little bit more emotional arc, and then you have 2 chapters that kind of run together. That's spanning almost like 2 to 3 years, and then you have a final chapter where she ends up where she's supposed to be. Earns the respect of. I don't want to give too much away. That's why I'm kind of speaking in very, very because I'm
very vague terms.
Very vague terms on the scenario. But when I finally come out with it, which it will be like later this year, that particular saga, I'm talking about like a 200, 300 word, 300 word novel, dark fantasy novel. I mean, I've rewritten the prologue about 3 times. I've got a whole running list of notes and stuff that I've done in my and this is just the first act. I still have acts 2, 3, and 4 left to go. Book, but I've already written rough draft. I already know where the story's going. It's just a matter of this needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. Emotion. Maybe change the viewpoint on this, or change the angle that I'm telling the story from. Kind of thing. It's just little tweaks like that. But that shows that, hey, even me, when I started this story, or when I originally wrote the summary for the story 19 years ago, versus when I started writing the story 2 years ago, and then to where I'm at now in the story, and I'm in the middle of doing the rewrites. Can you tell us the same story? Yes. Does it sound like the same story? No. It's like night and day.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like with my, not even like my second version of Yamay, it's the same exact story. It's just written coherently. But with my second book, War of the Gods, I actually rewrote that ending 4 times. And when you change an ending, you have to change a lot in the story. So even though I had it outlined, when I was 18, and then I actually wrote it when I was 20 and just like shelved it. I'm like, all right, I'll work on that later. By the time I was, I don't know, 27, I think is when I actually started working on it. And it was too happy. And I was like, what is this? You can't have a book called War of the Gods and have it be happy. Really. I don't know what 20-year-old Haley was going through at the time, but that doesn't fit. So I changed the ending and then had to rewrite some things in the book. And then I read through it. I was like, I don't like this. And so I changed the ending again and did more rewrites. And I go, nope, still not right. Then I finally changed the ending. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the ending I need. And so I had to rewrite it. And then I also already wrote book 3 when I was 20. I just, for some reason, wrote books 2 and 3. I don't know why. I can't remember. It's way too long ago. And so when I got to book 3, I was like, oh gosh, this was the original ending of book 2. So I had to pretty much rewrite book 3 to fit what I had done.
Well, hey, I mean, that works out too, because that shows that you never throw anything away. Whenever you're making your cuts and edits and reworks and stuff, just keep it in a separate document. I'd always reference back to it.
Oh no. I save over. I'm crazy. I save over it. I don't keep it. Nope. I don't want it. If I deleted it, that means it wasn't worth it.
Oh wow.
So, but again, I have the stories memorized.
Good job killing your job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Slaughter them.
I do.
Leave them in the dumpster
I am not
somewhere.
gentle at all.
In the immortal words of Russell Carroll, in the immortal words of Russell Carroll, slaughter your darlings. They deserve it. He's probably going to be like, I didn't say they deserve it.
No, they deserve it. They deserve it. That
Carol.
First edition of Yamay deserves it.
How dare they waste my time writing them?
Like, I have this emotional attachment to this one character, and it's so great, even though it's a side character, and then like 4 chapters later, they're dead. And you're just like, no. Let's slaughter your darlings.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah. I admit, like my narrative changed because of circumstances. I am not afraid to slaughter a single darling. I have a favorite character. I'm not afraid. But
no one is safe.
I guess the key is no one is safe. That is exactly right. I had Yamay, and she's like, I really wanted to like these 2 characters, but I was afraid to because I thought they'd die. And I was like, well, you're allowed to like characters. Just, don't get too attached, is all I have to say.
I'm going to write a story in a Westeros, Game of Thrones style setting where it's like 1,000 Ways to Die, paired together.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Game of Thrones is Grimdark's already on the way there.
You're already halfway there, except you got to have somebody stub their toe and die of an infection or dysentery, or
there you go.
Throw a little Oregon Trail in there.
Oh yeah, always have to add dysentery. Funny enough, I had a friend when we were in English class. We were not doing our project. We were playing Oregon Trail on the school computer. And no matter what my character was, like it was my character. We even gave me different names, put me in a different order. I was always the first one to die, and it was always a dysentery. That game has it. I'm telling you, I am not forgiven Oregon Trail.
My anthology entry is pretty grimdark in the sense that like there's not much hope, I guess you could say. I was forced to slim it down some, and there was a whole scene at the end where they kind of report back, but it still really wasn't like there wasn't any hope. And you have a it was my first like real. I guess I was going for Grimdark, but it's a scouting party that goes out and that finds the monolith, and stuff happens. But are you participating in the anthology, Haley?
No, it was happening right during my big move across the country, so I couldn't participate. Although I did write a short story, and I actually have it for free on my website, like in a blog, just because I've never really written a short story. But it's actually a lot of fun. Like, I couldn't believe how much fun I had just to write like a short little story.
They're so much more compact. Like, you have to be a little bit more choosier with your words.
Yeah. I the short story I did was like, it shows Yamay when she's like 12 years old, and I just show the underground. She grows up in a criminal underworld, and it's like they are just, everyone down there is a criminal. That's where they send, if you did something bad on the surface, you're living underground, and the rule is underground. So they're just, anything bad that can happen will happen. And so it was fun to kind of show all the ugly side of humanity in, I think, 2,000 words. But breaks it up so it's not just like, oh, I walk in and it's a pit of horrible things happening. Like, it's steps, and it was a lot of fun to do. You know, there's a bit of murdering, there's a bit of thieving, you know, there's ladies of the night, if you will, walking around. So it's just, it was fun to do. So I'm kind of curious if I'll do, you know, an anthology in the future, just to see, kind of test myself.
Ready? We're hitting about an hour here. Anything more, and it's going to take forever to upload. So let's kind of move on. I would say I thank you for being on the show. And
thank you for having me.
We have some cover reveals if you want to go over them with us. Here, hold on, let me switch the scenes. Cover reveals. Now, these are from the last couple weeks. I've had them in storage. I just, you know, I see them. Nobody really sends me anything, so I'm having to pick and choose and like pull stuff off of X and, you know, what I can see. All right, so Gwen's Kingdom got a new release, re-release, and we'll have Mr. Brian on the show in. Yeah, almost a month from now. So July 19th, Brian Holshauser.
Cool.
So there's that. And then let's see. This was Ryan. Can't even see that. Alhi of Empires and Dust. I managed to see that one.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. Got a little purple with the lion thing on there. A lot of these aren't in the Fellowship, so
yeah.
Chris Lind, Spectre. I want to say that this was a promo on booked by Saffron, I think. Like, hey, this is cool. I want to say we might have. I don't know. I remember seeing another thing like that. Joseph John Lee, Upscale and Dragons All Along. This one was kind of like an extra promo from a couple weeks ago. Cover reveal for Wilted Flowers. This was this is a dark poetry collection that I saw on her feed. ZB Still turned 30 like 2 weeks ago. There's his smiling face when he was doing a free promo for Inkling. Jason W. Miser, he released his. Now we did the cover reveal for this, Matt, but
yeah.
he actually pulled the trigger and it's out now. I want to say it's been out for about a week and
Very nice.
week and a half, maybe 2. Pretty cool. So yeah, it's out now. I mean, it seemed like Flash to Bang was pretty quick on that one, but I guess he felt confident.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at the reviews or anything, so to see how well it's doing now, but I haven't heard anything bad from it either. So sometimes silence is good. And then there's my book. There's the Curiosities Volume 1, First Glimpse, that was released earlier this month.
Nice. Totally intentionally released earlier this month.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. Intentionally, not intentionally released earlier this month. It was actually supposed to not even be. It was supposed to be in pre-order all month, and it was supposed to go live production in 8 days. But oh well. Hey, thanks.
Here we are.
Thanks, Amazon.
Oh God.
Oh, anyway, it's actually done pretty well so far. Paperback mostly, not the ebook. Surprisingly, I mean, yeah, I ran that 3-day free ebook for people to buy it and download it, and there's been a couple feedbacks from that. But I haven't, even though it's enrolled in Kindle Unlimited, I haven't had any reads. And my paperback's actually been my biggest seller, besides the free copies that everybody snagged up. And most of those are people that I know. So it's like, hey, okay, cool. But that little bit of sales, even actually before the Kindle free book weekend, it was in the top 10 fantasy short stories. I was like, hey, that's cool.
Nice.
Now it's like top 60.
That's still pretty good
That
up
sounds
there.
great. Yeah.
I've had to revise the cover a little bit because there was some alignment issues on the spine because it is such a small book. It's and then I went ahead and slapped my Authors Guild seal on the back cover for Ingram Spark and Amazon. I'm actually waiting for Amazon, but it's just my Authors Guild human authored certification that they offer you if you're a member. You register your book, get your seal serialized. It's got its own number and everything for reference.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I guess that's all we have for this weekend. Thank you for being on the show, Haley. If you have any do you have any questions of us before we go? I know we've kind of talked.
No, not at all.
A whole lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. Matt, you
Thank
didn't ask you. Did you ask your question yet?
Yeah. Do you want me to ask my question? I try to ask all our indie authors. Well, only I guess interviewed indie authors so far, but all interviewed, I like to ask, what does success mean to you, and do you think you've reached success at this point? And everyone kind of gives a little bit of a different answer, so that's why I like asking.
Yeah, no, it's a fun one. Success to me is, having a constant readership. I have some, dedicated, some I know, some who I've met doing events. So it's not just, they have a connection to me. I really do have, as I call them, brandos, who are, dedicated readers. But success to me is like a constant turn of readers. That's success to me. I don't feel like I've hit it because I've had such a dry spell for 2 months. I did sell some books. I had a Return to the Realm kind of promo where book 2 was just 99 cents. And I got some books, but it's really been slow. But I also don't do ads. I don't really market because I just moved. I haven't had the focus for it. But success to me is just that constant incoming of readers, which I don't feel like I've hit. Some months I do really good, and some months I feel that success. And then there's months like the last 2 where I feel like I don't have it. So it's constant ebb and flow kind of success feel.
All right. Well, here's hoping you find that a more constant.
Yeah, thanks.
So, thanks
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like a sell a day. That would be cool, but like that's too high of a standard. I just like to think of, monthly sales would be very nice, or monthly page reads.
Okay.
Yeah, page reads. I haven't really experienced that yet, and I was like, I'm sitting there thinking about how every 2 pages, and I don't know. I see people with all these, I guess they're really big on the Kindle Unlimited, and I don't. I guess I don't know how to break into that market yet. People would rather just outright buy it.
Yeah, it's all about marketing. I mean, most of the people who are getting those big page reads and those big sales are doing ads. They're spending money to make money. And that's really because everyone, like when you release a book, you get that big influx. You get a bunch of sales, people are waiting, you have supporters already. It's new, so people want it, and then it dies. That just happens. I see a bunch of authors just crash. They're like, what happened? I haven't sold a book in a month. I'm like, well, yeah, you just released it. You're going to have this big celebration. You're going to see some things, and then you're going to crash. That's just how it goes. You have to keep pushing to keep that momentum going. That's the hardest part.
I've got to play. So the guy, it reminds me of, we all pick on each other. And, I learn from the great and wonderful mentor videos of Russell all the time. His videos are always good. And then talking trash between Tyler and Christopher and a few others in the community. And then we have our wonderful GF Allen that's always just plucking away on how he really wishes. Hold on, let me get it up here. Wish I was better prepared. So he had a cover reveal that he finally picked his book 2 cover. So he's going with the blue cover instead of red. And
I'm glad he did the blue.
And
I was pro blue, team blue.
And then this is an inside scoop of his future sales pitch. It's why is it all cut off? Anyway, it says, I once again hoping to sell a copy of my book today. I actually said that to him, and he's like, that book's not even out yet. And I was like, I know it, but it was hilarious. You can keep it for later. He goes, okay. Anyway,
That's a great slogan. I might take that. That's
right.
That's fun.
I'm once again hoping to sell a copy. Aren't we all? But
yep, every single one of us.
Right. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up. Thank you for being on the show, and we'll see y'all later.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Haley. Keep writing.